Very good. Well, with that said, I'm just going to jump to the agenda because there are always things to do. And in less than an hour from now, we need to be at the Cliff Haven Rec Park. First item on the list is travel policy. I gave you some, a draft, some proposed changes. I asked, talked with Pat, he authored it, make a note. I don't know if there's anything anyone would like to bring up, point out, or discuss here.
I had talked with Pat earlier about just the what I would like to see as far as the consistencies of not doing the breakfast. For example, I think that if people are departing their home, there certainly is no need for us to be doing the breakfast, as one example.
Mm-hmm. And there's,
I likewise, I feel the same way about when somebody arrives home and they're gonna have dinner at home. I don't see us buying for dinner. I just think it's taking the situation to an excess. I think travel expenses should be, if they're gonna be overnight, then it makes sense. But other than that, yes, if they're gonna be out, they're gonna, you know, be on the road and attend a meeting and have a lunch or whatever, put the lunch on the expense voucher, but I don't see a half. I think I just think it's too much.
We also chatted about the flow of the document is if you're going, as you're going through it, you can actually, more to the point of if you're going to update the document later, there's multiple locations where some of the things are referenced, and I think that provides opportunity for lots of confusion in the future, because if you forget to update one spot and then you don't update the other spot, is people are saying, well, which one did you mean, so on and so forth. So I think the flow of the document overall, as I talked to Pat, could be cleaned up a little bit.
And I know we try very hard to have our, have employees use town vehicles when they're available. But I think if a town vehicle is not available, then I think we should be paying the government allocated allowance for use of a private vehicle. The amount of, the he mentioned in there just does not.
I think that
doesn't cut it.
maybe I missed that. That's what we've been doing, is whatever the standard IRS rate per mile is. Okay, that's a change.
It's substantially less than what the government.
One of the things that's happened in a few instances where we have individuals who want to go to a workshop, a training session out of the area, and they have family nearby. They've agreed to stay at their family's home, which saves us a lot in lodging, and drive themselves, because I don't want them using a town vehicle to, take their grandmother out to have a cup of coffee or something. And we reimburse that way, which is really a win-win for us. But I don't know why that was reduced that way.
So in that instance, do we pay them for their private vehicle?
Yes.
Even though they're staying at someplace else and
Yes.
traveling around?
We've been paying, only to and from the site of the conference. If they're traveling 40 miles for their lodging, that's not our problem. Only for to and from. And the other thing with the lunches, I may be a little concerned, so I skimmed through this. On page 3, it indicates that the breakfast is only available if you depart 1 hour prior to your normal work time, and the dinner only available if you return at least 2 hours later than a normal work time.
So you go shopping.
So if you have an extended day, then that was in. One of the things Pat and I had some conversation about also was there are some IRS regulations in here that we want to make sure we're following. Your concern, Mike, with the flow, I agree, simple is always better. We can simply know what we're supposed to do, what you're supposed to get, and not see items referenced multiple times. You're right, you miss a section, an update, now we have a conflicting document.
Well,
So we'll discuss that
I
too.
think the other part to it is tightening down, and I would agree, there are times where a town vehicle is not available, but I think we need to get a better grasp on that, you know, if we're looking at mileage. So,
I agree with that, and just to clarify, Bernie, you had said, you know, you didn't know why he had reduced the mileage from 57.5 cents to
Right.
33 cents.
We've been using the standard IRS rate for that year because it
Right.
fluctuates during the year,
Right.
so.
I think right now it's 57.5, but Pat said that there was somebody who recently took a trip and he spent more on mileage than the whole conference cost. And Pat just thought that was a little bit.
Well, it might be just because it was a cheap conference and it was a long ways away.
Right, but I agree with Michael, I think we need to really pay attention, and if there's a town vehicle available, we need to push that.
Oh, always. Always. If we can save though, because the individual says, you know, I can stay at
Oh,
home.
yeah.
I'm not crazy about them using a town vehicle
Right.
at private residence. The other thing we run into, we really have one fleet vehicle that's kind of up for grabs. And if that's gone for a 3-day conference, all the communications back and forth during those 3 days, you're gonna end up paying mileage.
Right.
Everybody's really good. I know I've never submitted a mileage claim in 10 years, and I think most people are, but technically, you know, we should be. So it's, you
Yeah.
weigh, you know, the pros and cons.
And one thing that I suggested is that you ask for receipts for meals.
And we have to get receipts.
Well, Pat said that they don't, they just pay the standard amount.
Yes.
He said it's kind of a pain on their end, which I understand, and he's probably not gonna appreciate the extra work, but I think that we should ask for receipts.
You're right. I was confusing that with another time in my life because I used to go through receipts making sure only food was on it.
Right, not alcohol.
But they have done a flat for that purpose, just to simplify. And you could get somebody that gets a meal allowance check and they eat peanut butter and jam sandwiches and cash the check.
What's the downside if we just do a per diem for everything? You know, like, I know that it's a lot, like in the town convention, when I used to go, there was a time when you had to get the receipts, go into a restaurant, sometimes they wouldn't have receipts, and then you had the question, do you make them for receipts? I mean, it gets crazy, as opposed to saying, look, you get X dollars, like as Bernie said, if you want to sit in the room and eat peanut butter sandwiches, great. If you want to go to the Ritz and have caviar, great, but you're gonna get $100 a day or $50 a day,
And
whatever.
that's what Pat's advocating for.
Yeah, oh, I thought you said you wanted receipts.
Well, I personally would like to see receipts, but Pat didn't tell us.
We've done it that way, with just a flat rate for a long time. It does streamline the process. I know my experience going to New York City, that doesn't cut it. As Jim said, you can choose where to eat. If I want to, you know, eat off a vendor in the street, I may have a little change in my pocket. It's your choice.
but I think it comes more from the policy perspective of, you know, overall, you know, where are we questioning dollars coming in, dollars coming out? You know, if we're telling people we're gonna provide up to $25 and you've only spent $5, is it really appropriate for us to, you know, give you $20 for free?
I think, well, I don't know, but I mean, I think if you argue the other way, what if you spent 50, would it be appropriate to pay them the extra 50 and say,
No, you don't pay the extra, you just.
yeah, I think you said, it would be, like, I don't have a vote, I would think that the simple, easy way would be set something that's reasonable, whatever is reasonable, and just say, I'm on a diet, I'm not gonna eat lunch, and, you know, or Mike says, I'm gonna have 6 bacon cheeseburgers, and that's fine, I don't know, just.
But if you give me $20 allowed and I bring receipts, I'm probably going to spend $19.95 minimum.
And then you've got somebody to review the receipts and.
I'm interested in what Tom thinks about this. Way down there.
What's that?
They don't care.
What do I think?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we should give less money for driving, we should have Priuses for our cars for the town, so that they get 50 miles a gallon, and we won't have to pay that much.
But we're also talking about receipts for meals and such.
Crony capitalism.
I think it's possible. You know, I'm
I'm not a very good candidate because I don't usually spend.
He's the peanut butter and jelly man, so tell her.
Yeah, he makes money on this stuff, so.
I
Maybe
I
not
don't,
unbiased.
I haven't experienced it too
Exactly.
much because I haven't had to bring in receipts, but, yeah, you can bring in receipts. I think I forget, but,
Then you wouldn't get paid back.
yeah, it's usual case.
I don't have a problem with a per diem. I've been through both systems, and I don't think that per diem, if you set the per diem at a level that is, you know, that the board's comfortable with, and the board feels we're not gonna get beat up on this per diem amount, then the other the employee is not having to chase around to get receipts, et cetera. Then, you know, they're not gonna be, you know, going out and eating high on a hog either. You know, you've set an amount that you're comfortable with, and it allows them, for example, to, you know, they may wanna spend more on a dinner meal and cut way back on the lunch meal, and they can do that. You know, you're not putting an amount on each different item. You're just saying you get so much in.
Right.
The only thing I would add is that, I sound like I'm lobbying this, for this I'm not, is when you have receipts, you presuppose there's no cost in reviewing. And there is a cost. And
Yeah, to the board
if it takes an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to review them, that's a cost that you have. So, I know one experience. I remember I was in a diner in New York City a number of years ago, and I said to the guy, I might have been the first person ever to ask for a receipt, and he said, "You want a receipt?" And he took the receipt book out and gave me 5 blank ones there. I said, okay. So then, what do? You can't make them out.
A lot of that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've heard a lot of pros and cons on this. We'll work on another revision and get that in front of you. Consideration of all as previously mentioned. Next item on the list is the volunteer fire and ambulance first responder leave time. We had a resolution all queued up, ready to go, and I needed to follow up with every person who might currently qualify, just to know what the current practice was. I hadn't been able to catch one person, that's why I pulled it. I since have done that. I've been able to confirm currently any of our volunteers, and we have three chiefs that work for the town right now. When they go, if they go, they clock out, clock back, they come back.
It's a place to apply.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do, the board had made me shut this thing off. I just told that one no, but I didn't be ready for the next one. The board acknowledges the value to the community of our volunteers. The certified, you guys know what that means, the ones who actually have complied, they've done the training, they're active, they're meeting their quotas. We acknowledge the value of that. We acknowledge if we didn't have our volunteers, there would be a burden that would be significant. Over the years, we've all heard that relative to the paid fire department in the city. It's very expensive. As each department knows, of trying to manage your own budgets and keep up with equipment and training. There was a fire, and I just got my nose rubbed in it a little more than normal, and was out a couple times, and seeing the chief from District 3, Greg Burnell, through the night into the morning. And the last time I was out at the fire, he made a comment of how he was going to have to get home, clean up, and try to get some work in. It dawned on me, I followed up with the highway superintendent. Yeah, he goes, he uses his time. It just hadn't dawned on me, and nobody had ever complained. Nobody was complaining. So we've discussed that at some length, and what the board has a resolution that we will have in our agenda next Monday at a regular meeting, is that we would provide for those qualifying individuals 3 additional days of personal leave. we had a lot of discussion about linking it to time actually served. I know Tom's real concerned about that. But in the same conversation of receipts, the monitoring of that becomes bigger than really what the end result is. In the mind of many of us, in my mind, we've got some volunteers that really try to get their response, their calls in evenings, weekends. They don't have a life. I think I was at one of the banquets, you were there, Mike. I think they said they had 400 call-outs, and it's wild. In respecting those individuals, and the fireman who didn't make his daughter's birthday because he was out fighting the fire, if he can take the next day off because of that, he's got 3 extra days. Use it. It's a recognition. It's an appreciation. I don't know. I haven't talked with either of you. If you have any thoughts, comments about that, we're hoping that acknowledges and maybe it encourages.
I personally think it's great. I think it's a huge acknowledgement from the board that you see that. Bernie, I heard Greg was going to get you your own set of turnout gear. I talked to him later that day. He was very happy to have had you there, and he said it was a good experience.
It really was, and in that fire, where they were fighting the fire and what they began to see were 2 different things, and it really needed some other attention.
Yep.
And I think the end result was very positive. So yes.
What I'd add to the discussion, you got 3 real good, dedicated people there, and I think what you're doing is certainly appropriate for them. I would be concerned that the rest of your employees are all going out and join the fire department tomorrow because you're going to give them 3 more days of leave.
They earn them.
I would all the fire departments have a probationary period. I would think that would have to be a requirement for you folks, that the member would be off probation with the fire department. And I would think that you wouldn't want to do that for a brand new employee either. I would think, you'd want them to complete a year of service with the town before you hand them 3 more days off.
Jeff, do you guys in South Plattsburgh have a quota system that you have to make so many fires a year? Or so many?
Officially, Ricky, yes. Unofficially, if people are coming here, and the percentage is 20% of your fire calls, 20% of your meetings, 50% of your meetings, 50% of your Monday nights. If a guy's working 3 to 11 at Bombardier, he can't come to 50% on Monday nights.
But it's a leeway.
It's something that we struggle with. We're actually changing to a point system so that a guy that comes to every fire call there is, at 9 in the morning but can't come at 9 at night, gets the same credit as the people that are working Monday through Friday 8 to 4. The volunteer fire service isn't in a place to kick people out the street because of some made-up quota so the answer isn't you got to do X. The answer is you got to be active and do something.
Are all departments flexible that way?
No.
I think it varies.
I didn't think so.
I think it varies a lot.
Yeah, because I'm hearing from some, you don't make it, you're not in.
And it's a difference of 1 call. It's a difference of 1 call, Bernie, in some
That's crazy.
places.
Yeah.
You had to make 20 and you made 19. See you later. And I don't think we're in a position to be able to do that today.
If I might, I think you've got a real special situation there, and a heck of a coincidence or an awful good place to work or something. You have 3 fire chiefs there, as opposed to volunteer firefighters like myself. I mean, I was a chief at one time, and I suppose that was different. But I guess my point is getting to it. With a fire chief, it's a special situation. He has a lot more responsibility than the average volunteer firefighter does. And I guess my advice would be that you need to have something a little more liberal in this instance. And if you do have other volunteer members that are not fire chiefs and not chief officers, maybe you ought to develop a better policy for it. But I think fire chief deserves some special recognition, for want of a better term, because of the added responsibility they have. I mean, Jeff knows that, I know that.
I think
The 3 guys there would tell you the same thing if you asked them.
the idea that the individual needs to be off their probation and have completed a full year of service with the town first is great. If everybody agrees, I'll put that in.
You wouldn't be a fire chief if you were still on probation with your department, believe me.
Oh, yeah. But this wasn't targeting just the chiefs either. But again, in the entire town, we only have 3.
Do you folks provide a certificate of good standing? I'm just thinking on like an annual basis. You know what I mean? So a member could say, well, I'm still active with, South Plattsburgh, but truth of the matter, they're really not.
We don't, and I certainly can't speak for all the other fire chiefs, but I know in a lot of circumstances, people will come and say, hey, chief, I need a letter of good standing, and we have no problem doing that.
So I think that is from an annual standpoint too.
Others indicated to me that there was some documentation, which is in the resolution we talk about them being certified as, not just, I'm a volunteer.
What there is some fire departments have what they call a length of service program. And a length of service program is basically an insurance policy. Marty, you may be familiar with some of these, that basically sold through an insurance company, and it works like a retirement system for a volunteer firefighter. The district buys into it. If you meet so many, it could be meetings, it could be trainings, you make so many points in a year, you're considered in good standing, and the fire district contributes some amount of money to this account, and at the age of retirement, you draw money based on how many years of service you have. We don't have one of those. The fastest way to get drummed out of the board meeting here is to bring that up.
Careful.
So that is in place in some places.
Okay. Any other thoughts,
Well,
conversations?
I was just gonna say, on the first comment, that Mike, and encourage everybody else in town of Plattsburgh to join the fire department. It might not be a bad thing to get a few more volunteers.
Absolutely.
We'll take them all.
It's a heck of a commitment with the training and everything to do for getting 3 more lead days. But I will incorporate your suggestions. I think they're excellent. Where I've got note of a certified, we'll also know documented by a letter from the chief or, the commissioners if it's a chief. So we sort out the best.
And I would just, what's your labor management gonna say about it? That's
They're
okay with that?
supportive. Absolutely. I went to the Teamsters. They did the same thing. He said, thumbs up, those volunteers need
Good deal.
a little recognition.
Good deal.
And my intent is, if this passes with this board, I chair the Clinton County Supervisors Group. I'm going to bring it to them as well to see if they might consider something to support the volunteer fireman ambulance certified, trained, documented, as we said, in their municipalities too. The guys do a heck of a job for us, and we know it, and we want to acknowledge it.
We try real hard.
You do a good job.
Weren't you also saying to try to encourage the private
Yes, yep, to the extent
businesses
we
and
can.
stuff to also
Mhm.
encourage them to try to do something?
Where they can, let them go. And not every business can.
No.
I mean, even in the town, everyone acknowledges, I spoke with all 3 of the guys. If I'm working on a broken water main,
Can't
we're
go.
right there, I can't go. It's a matter of which crises, you can't put one over the other. But we've got good decision makers there, and I think these volunteers tend to be.
And Tom, so some of the bigger businesses in town, we've got a couple folks here at Nova Bus, we've got a couple folks here at Bombardier. They're very good about letting their people go. We have a form that a chief officer signs, they take back with them when they go back to work, that says they left work and came to a fire. So some of the bigger places are able to do that with the volunteers.
That's great.
Good. Any other discussion on that topic? Thank you for the feedback and input. Next, you had a letter from Michelle Buckminster.
Yeah, I thought,
Oh, I think that's the one that caused Lana to shut them off.
So that's
570.
I think that was a wonderful thing. I mean, it's great to have somebody reporting back.
Oh, she's very sharp.
On going to a conference like that, and it just shows you why those people aren't just in charge, but the others need to be able to go to these conferences and learn more about the total job and what they can do themselves. And also, it provides them an advancement opportunity, because as they learn those things, they, recognize that. So to me, it was great. I mean, I'd love to see something like this, and it's the first time in my 12 years that I've seen anybody report that thoroughly, including me.
Yeah, without a
Very
doubt.
much included.
Yeah, it shows some really great initiative too on their part.
Yeah, I
I
was
think it's really impressive.
really impressed. I will pass the board's very favorable attitude toward what she did, and with the copious notes that she obviously took to then go back and compose this. It's a lot of respect for the opportunities. But I really wanted you to make sure each get a copy, because it deserved that level of attention.
Well, I think it helps set a gold standard of our expectations, especially for first time out. We want folks to be able to show the quality and what they're getting out of it. So,
It helps us understand her job too.
Yeah.
Which is, I think,
It really does, and you'll find in a very small organization like that one, like codes, like others, I guess, at the town, the clerical staff is an integral part of operations. Many times, that's the only person there when a developer or project comes in to communicate, try to provide information that's accurate and effective. So it's knowledge is power. Which goes right along with the next one. I wanted you to have a copy to see the follow-up concerning the junkyard license that was denied. Steve very quickly responded back. And again, it's done to very specifically indicate to the applicant what needs to be done. It's done to encourage the applicant to mitigate the problem, and then have it reviewed one more time and hopefully achieve their goal to get a permit. I also, and I didn't do of all these reports, I didn't do a written report, but I did the next day contact a gentleman who had spoken to us about his concerns in the community of Wallace Hill. I spoke with Steve first, I spoke with Dave Duquette, and I contacted him as well. Steve immediately went up, he spoke with some neighbors, Dave had been up, they both knew him, they both knew the situation, and there were some changes rather quickly made. We did follow. I'm watching time a little bit. Let's just finish with another letter, I guess, at this point. Number 5, letter from Codes and Zoning, the Beacon Motel. This is not unlike what happened with the fire at the Best Value, which was in the offices, a disconnected building. Firemen, upon further review to make sure the property was safe, began to see other issues of concern. You've got to be careful with privacy and going into properties without cause, but this particular site has become a serious problem, and we can't really solve the social woes and needs. There are some homeless folks, as you know. There are some people that have some habits that are illegal and addictive, some very difficult situations. But there are things we can control, and in being out there, this cabin number 11 was identified, horrific conditions. We recently had to euthanize an animal that was in one of those rooms, and I saw the animal and I saw the pictures of the room, as it looks like Ricky did. The room that the human was living in, I didn't think was fit for him. I mean, it's really horrific. There's some big problems there. I don't know all the solutions, but I really made a point this time of sharing some of the the day-to-day communications and things that happen, just to try to give you some insight into that. Beacon's a problem. We're aware of it and try to do what we legally can do.
One of the problems we have, and we have it in an unfortunate number of locations in the town, we have people who seek to rent property, but they do not want to spend the money to oversee their property. And these kinds of problems occur, and I can point out examples of property that we have in the community where we have larger numbers of people and don't have the problems because they do have good management, and yet it's lower income housing, and yet if it's supervised properly, the problems don't exist, but it takes supervision, and that means they have to spend some of the money to make sure that happens. I mean, we had a meeting today, and one of the things that we were dealing with was requests from certain landlords that they be awarded remedy for excess water usage, and it's their responsibility to oversee their rental property. And they can't put that back on the taxpayer.
Absentee landlords are often an issue. I want to say always, but often. Out of sight, out of mind, they're not paying anyone, as you said, to manage it, we have problems.
It's similar
But I
to
think-
like gentleman Wells Hill.
It's very similar, and I know who owns many of those properties, and we've had a lot of conversations.
And the answer is strict. That we have to have regulations, and we need strict enforcement of the regulations. When they feel the pinch, then they will address the problem.
I would suggest that at this time we move on to the favorite rec park.